ballot. So Emily? Oh, you're on mute, I think, Emily.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. There was a screen share that I apologize. Well, good evening, everyone. I am Emily Bernal. It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. So first and foremost, just a little bit about myself. I'm a parent of 2 children in the district. I have a 6th grader at DPM and a 4th grader at Everett. My husband and I moved here about 4 years ago, specifically seeking Lake Forest out because of the school's reputation and reputation for excellence. And also, Lake Forest has such a wonderful reputation on the North Shore for community. And my husband and I really wanted to be part of a community that we could give of our time. So Lake Forest really ticked a lot of boxes for us. So we made the move. But in addition to being a mom, I work full time. I run my own business. I started my company back in 2019. Little did I know the pandemic would hit, but at any rate, my consulting services supports architects, engineers, construction firms, even a sign company. My role in the projects really kind of depend on the needs of my clients. For example, I have a large restaurant client that has an expansion program nationally. So for them, I tend to run point on a lot of the projects. So from start to finish, I'm involved, kind of running quarterback, directing my team, managing the budget, schedule, and time for the jobs. But more importantly, too, I'm actually the individual that secures the approvals from the municipalities. So I go before planning and zoning boards and city council and basically explain the project, tell my story about what we're going to build, and get those approvals and assist my architects and engineers through permitting. And finally, wrapping up, helping the general contractors with certificate of occupancies and utilities. So it's from site plan all the way to grand opening. That's my role with that client. As a result, I've been a part of over 300 restaurant jobs nationally and growing. Definitely my day is filled with troubleshooting, problem solving, and quite honestly, I have to have a little bit of a sense of humor at times because there's never a dull moment. But really what leads me here today to you is my desire to run for the board. It really evolved out of a personal experience working with the administrative staff at Everett, developing an IEP for one of my children. Working and collaborating with administration in this detail really has quite honestly changed the way I look at public education. Not just for the student, not for my students personally, but just for all students. I view this role as a board member as a way to give back to the Lake Forest community by being a partner and advocate for our children. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this evening, and really looking forward to having the Lake Forest community get to know me a little bit better. So thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Now let's hear from Ann Garrity Helms, who goes by Annie and is number 2 on the ballot.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to virtually connect with you all. And thank you to Mary Jane and to the caucus for having me here tonight. First, just let me say, I wish this was happening in person. I think so much of this election so far has been on Facebook and social media and these kinds of Zoom events. And, you know, in being part of a community as wonderful as Lake Forest, it really is too bad that we can't just connect with each other in person more often. So I just wanted to start by saying that. First, to tell you a little bit more about me. I also have 2 kids, 2 boys. I'm a very proud parent of a Cherokee 4th grader and a Deer Path Middle School 6th grader. And I'm also a working mom. So for the past 15 years, I have been pro bono counsel at a major global law firm where I manage the pro bono program in the United States. Really, that means that I bring opportunities to give back to all of our lawyers at the firm, and giving back in community service has really been a part of my career since the start. We're doing everything at the firm from helping nonprofits weather the storm of COVID to working with food banks that are serving children and families. And in my personal practice, I tend to focus on representing children or families who are having issues that affect their personal safety and security. I'm running for the school board in part because of my commitment to personal service, in part because I love this community, and in part because I'm hoping that I can bring something from my professional experience to the board. I also just want to close by saying that to all the parents out there, that I can really relate to what you are going through right now. As a working parent myself, I can say it has been a tough year. I can tell you a lot of stories. Hopefully one day we'll be able to get to do that in person as well. So my goal, along with yours, is to get us as back to normal or as close to normal as quickly as we can, because the schools are the center of our communities. I think if there's one thing we've learned in the last year, the schools are the center of our communities. So we need to get back to making them the place where our children gather, learn, and thrive. And I look forward to being a part of that bright future.
Thank you, Annie. Next up is Carl Carrar, number 3 on the ballot.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here tonight. And thank you to the caucus for hosting this great event and for all the hard work that really all of you have done to support the election and this great process in the community. Again, my name is Carl Carrar. I'm a Lake Forest resident, parent of 2 kids within the school district, one at Sheridan, one at Deer Path. And I am the newest District 67 school board member. I am actually currently fulfilling the remaining term of a vacated board position and running for a full term this spring. So I am number 3, as he said, on the ballot, and I look forward to continuing to serve this community. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm originally from Northern Wisconsin and went to the University of Wisconsin and graduated with a civil engineering degree. Afterwards, I was commissioned in the U.S. Navy and kind of traveled all over the place, up and down the East Coast, some good places, some not so good places. And I did have the great honor of finishing my career right up the road here at Naval Station Great Lakes. I currently work for Lake County government as a department head running their facilities. And along with my military career, I've dedicated my professional career to public service for the past 25 plus years. As a public servant, something I've learned throughout my naval career, my focus is to provide the tools to the administrators, staff, and teachers to meet and even exceed their high expectations for the school district. I'm a son of a middle school teacher, so I have immense respect for the challenges and joys that comes with teaching. As a government administrator, I focus daily on efficient budgeting to meet our critical budgetary and operational needs. And as a parent of 2 kids within the district, I'm 100% focused and invested in the success of our schools. So once again, I'm Carl Carrar. I'm running for school board membership and I'm number 3 on the ballot. Thank you for considering me today. And I look forward to continuing the service to this community and to the school board.
Thanks so much, Carl. And now we'll hear from Alice Levert, number 5 out of 6 on the ballot.
Thank you to the Lake Forest Caucus and to those who have joined us tonight. My name is Alice Levert, and I'm running for re-election to the District 67 School Board. I've lived in Lake Forest for 27 years with my husband, Tim, and my 2 sons, Patrick and William, and I work for Verizon. During the last 4 years that I've served on the District 67 board, I've been a member of our Education Committee, our Policy Committee, and our Finance and Operations Committee. I've also served as board secretary for 4 years, and I'm currently our legislative liaison. I'm running for re-election because I care about getting our children back into school full-time. I've been advocating for this since last summer, and we continue to push for that to happen. I also care about choosing a new superintendent that will provide strong leadership and reflect the needs of our community going forward. And finally, I hope to bring stability and normalcy back to our schools, to our families, and to our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alice, and thank you all candidates. I think we can see why they were slated by the caucus and the right track. They're truly vetted, proven, and exceptional professionals. So now we'll move on to questions. So this is, given the communication from the school board meeting last night, what are your thoughts and reactions? And I was going to put this out to Carl or Alice. You were at the meeting. Do you want to address this first? Either one of you.
Certainly, I can jump in right away if you don't mind, Alice.
Sure.
Well, I share some of the thoughts and concerns and the frustrations that come with a lot of the parents in the community. Like my two very energetic girls working out of the house, doing school, and my wife and I both working parents. It's been very difficult for us to balance not only our full-time jobs, but to also be a teacher, supervisor, and proctor all at the same time. So I really, really want the schools to open full-time as soon as possible. Last night, the board received the first draft of this reopening plan from the superintendent and the administration. And I do look at that as a first draft. The good news is the district is dedicated to full-time in-person school in the fall, which is a great, with also an opportunity to continue in the AVA program, which is really fantastic. The not so good news is that they recommended continuing the hybrid and AVA programs through the remainder of the school year. They really did have a sound, rational, very real concerns that come with reopening the schools. I, along with my fellow board members, we all agreed with their concerns. But I do firmly believe that as a starting point, which is what this was, that we can and should plan for opening as soon as possible to include the spring. And I very pointedly asked the administration and the superintendent that question: what's it going to take to get there? Start planning today to get there. And I believe that we committed to that as a board members to drive that home with the administration. So that's how we're going to move forward. The administration's been directed to one, survey all the parents immediately to see what their level of comfort is. And they're going to start planning for full day in-person options for this spring, and plan now for a full day instruction. And it's going to be hard for them to do, and it's going to take a lot of time and effort, which is why I still want to drive the administration to include this community action team, which could bring in the expertise and the different ideas, the great ideas that come out from just other people outside the district within a community that can help get this in action and moving forward. And I do believe very strongly that I am not the expert here, but there are other people in our community that are, and they can help us get to where we need to be. So my impression still is this is the first draft, and we need to continue refining as we move along.
Thank you, Carl. That's very thoughtful. Alice, do you have any thoughts from last night's meeting?
Sure. So it was a long night for all who joined, as you know. And I have to say, as a board member, we were disappointed in the recommendation brought to us by the staff and superintendent. I didn't feel that we made the progress that we had expected and had hoped for since the January request for the plan going forward to have more in-person learning. The reason I say that is there were no details, the devil's in the details. And although they broadly spoke about what they felt was best and defended their reasoning, it unfortunately fell short of details on moving forward to an in-person learning structure. So one of the requests made last night was to address their concern about space or lack of space. And the request was for them to go back and look at creative space options, whether that be trailers, whether that be additional tents, pods, renting locations on a short-term basis, etc. So we did ask them to go back and reevaluate the space issues that seem to be at the top of the list as far as a detriment to bring children back. The other thing they talked about this Zoom room and a lottery to go with that. And I would say every board member felt strongly that a lottery is not the way to go right now. So these were some of the concerns that came up last night. What we do know, though, is we cannot go back to pre-pandemic full-time in-person learning, at least not at this juncture in this school year. We do hope, and Carl and I are advocates, to continue to look to see if we can increase in-school time after spring break. It's not a simple flip of the switch, but we continue to hope and press for greater details and moving in that direction. On a positive note, they did commit to us that full-time school will indeed be the goal and will happen this fall.
Thank you, Alice. Annie and Emily, what were your impressions after the meeting was over?
Oh, okay. Sure. I'll go ahead. What were my well, gosh, a lot of emotions. I went through a lot of emotions watching that meeting, because like a lot of the parents that voiced their frustrations and anger and concern, I'm right there with you. My good days are outnumbered by bad. My relationship with my children often are more fighting over getting things done and not paying attention and logging in and logging out. And it's very difficult. Either times, honestly, I feel like I'm totally failing as a mom because I can't keep it all together. So, I'm disappointed. I'm really, really disappointed. I'm angry that there wasn't at least more of consideration to take an attempt and a creative attempt to look at how we can make this happen. I think we can. I mean, I guess if there's any positive that I took from what I was hearing from the administration is that there are obstacles, but there are things that they believe they can overcome. So we need to push them to overcome it. I really think at this point, we're very late in the game. This is something that really should have been prepared and not necessarily adopted, but known by the end of the year, and something that we are working towards to open in the spring. It's, I know all of our community members are just really at their breaking points. Believe me, I am one of them. And I just think, again, that the board members, granted, they're individuals. I understand that you guys vote collectively as board members, really have got to always provide really clear direction as to what you need that report to look like. Because that was one thing, and I've been observing all of these board meetings that I've noticed that at times there isn't really a clear, more their comments, there really are not clear direction as to what needs to be seen. And sadly, I just think the leadership of this administration we have currently really needed a lot of hand-holding, a lot of direction. So personally, I think with his departure, there is opportunity here to find a really strong candidate to lead. He could have chosen to lead us out of this, and he chose to turn and leave. So at the end of the day, we do have a tremendous opportunity. So there is that positive on it. Now we just need to continue to push, hold him accountable, give the detail. Like Alice said, the devil is absolutely in the detail, because there's no reason the spacing question shouldn't have been able to be answered, and some other creative solutions should have been presented yesterday. It's not acceptable at this point, in my opinion. So again, very emotional. Very emotional. It was a very hard meeting to listen to.
Thank you, Emily.
Mm-hmm.
Annie, do you have any thoughts you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts. I think, like Emily, first and foremost, I did come to the meeting as a working parent. I was sort of reflecting on my day, which was a very busy work day, included a call with a teacher about how homework's not getting done, even though all I feel like I do is run around and say, have you done your homework? And my kids somehow ended up on opposite schedules. So I have one who goes in the morning and one who goes in the afternoon, and like the 11 to 11:30 hours, just complete chaos. And I actually put a meeting on my calendar with my child for 30 minutes so that we could play Scrabble together, because otherwise he spends the whole afternoon kind of in the basement by himself. I mean, so when those parents were talking to the board, with their very thoughtful, prepared remarks, I mean, I'm with you. And I also then tried, because I feel like it is the role of the board member to really listen to all sides. And so I really listened to the administration and to their concerns about logistics, and sort of tried to understand where they're coming from. And after a lot of reflection this morning and sort of in the middle of the night last night, what I thought to myself is that this is a little bit of a problem of failure to plan, I think. One of the things that struck me during the meeting was that the administration said from the start of the year, their only plan was for either hybrid or remote. There was no plan for full in-person learning and that's what I heard. And I wonder why that is. Did we not think that there could be a scenario where things could get a lot better this year? I heard them say they want to open next year, but they haven't started working on a plan for doing that. And that seems like something that needs to be happening. I know they just sent out a survey about getting parents on a committee, but that planning needs to be really happening right now. I saw, and I think I appreciate that Carl is very generous, and he says the board asked for a plan in January and they came back with this Zoom room plan, which I think was their answer. But as a parent, what I heard was no plan. I mean, I heard the board of directors asking for a plan, and it really wasn't delivered. All I really heard was why going back this year won't work. And I also understand that plan was not delivered to the board in advance, so that they really had to kind of react to it on the spot. Again, that's something I think that I would work on changing. I think, as Emily said, there's a great opportunity with a new superintendent to do that. And I also didn't hear any sort of thought about creative solutions. We've known since day one that space is an issue in our schools. And we know that space is what we need to be able to go back full time, given all the recommendations and guidelines. So why aren't we thinking about space? Why, I think somebody raised the point about tents, about gyms, this should be something that is really front of mind. I heard about the survey that's going to be going out to parents, and I appreciate that that's happening. I think it should have been done, I think, as Carl said, it was weeks ago, months ago, to hear about what kinds of options work for parents and what won't, and also what kind of safety works for parents and what won't. I think, people have to understand sort of the risks and trade-offs. So we should be hearing from parents about what they think about that. I am very concerned, and I think I've already seen it in the reactions, that the Zoom room option that was proposed is not going to be something that parents are jumping up and down about. So we need to hear from them and hear what's acceptable. So right now, I think what we need, I think the last point I'll make, sorry, I said I had a lot of thoughts, is that several of the parents mentioned other school districts and private schools that were open. So I think we should take a look at those schools and find out a little bit more about what's going on there. I've heard that there are a lot of caveats at each of those schools. So for example, I think it was Deerfield, maybe the kids had to change teachers several times. Is that something that's really worth it to us? But there are schools, I just looked at one of the websites of the schools that have reopened, and I saw that they're requiring every student who travels during spring break to present a negative COVID test before they can come back into school. Is that something that we want to consider, given how important it is for us to be back full time? These are the kinds of things that I think we should be talking about, sort of the action plan. My husband always says, Annie, you're a doer. And so I feel like we just need to start doing.
Thanks so much, Annie. Those are great thoughts. Thank you, all candidates, for your responses to that question. The next question I have for Alice. You're an incumbent running for your second term. What strengths does our district have and what challenges do you see ahead?
So we have a lot of strength. District 67 has excellent teachers and excellent staff. We have a great community that wants to be involved in their children's education. And we have a highly educated and motivated community. So we also have a board of volunteers who really care. Our schools are excellent, our curriculum is strong, and we have excellent resources. So a lot of good. Of course, we still have challenges, and number one is solving for this pandemic. We also need to remember to keep our property taxes local so that we fund our schools. If the state gets a hold of our property taxes, they'll divide them up as they see fit. And our schools are supplemented by our property taxes to the tune of about 90% of our funding. And then again, big picture, we always have to keep an eye on the pension issues at the state level. So those are some of the challenges that we face, but number one is getting through the pandemic.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Alice. Carl, would you like to comment on one or two priorities you would be focusing on as a school board member?
Well, the most obvious one is getting the schools open and providing AVA options for our families who want it. Really, it's the first step is exactly what Annie and Emily and Alice all talked about is need a plan of action with milestones. Got to come up with that, got to develop it. And sorry, I didn't touch on the Zoom room topic a little earlier, because honestly, I don't think it was a really viable option to begin with. I am very much a supporter of a proctored space for children to be in and to provide them more time within the schools. But just on the surface of it, Zoom room to expand over the hour and a half that is their lunchtime is just, it's not viable. So it is something that, again, I looked at this as a first draft plan. They need to come back and revise it. One of the sayings that we have in the military is a plan is only good as first contact. And while they've had it, and now they got to go back and revise it. It's just how it is. You got to roll with it. I do really firmly believe in community involvement and activism is going to be key to all the success. And this community action team, it's a first step. The administration took this and they really were focused on the opening of the fall school program for full-time in-person teaching. But they really need to focus that and change the focus of that to look immediately and developing today's plan for that effort. So I look at that as the top priority of going into school board. The next step would be to really improve the transparency within the school district. I think what we're seeing here today with the anxiety that a lot of parents have, my own family included, is the lack of transparency. We as board members, you hit it on the head, and we didn't see the draft of the plan until the day before, and I had very little time to digest it or even really develop a coherent thought to focus on it. So we need to work as a community to improve that. And once we improve the transparency and the communication, that will restore the confidence, not only in the administration, but in the school districts and as us as board members moving forward. So 2 big priorities: get the schools open and improve transparency.
Thank you, Carl. That leads to my next question, actually. Some people feel the district hasn't been transparent enough in its communication with parents and the community. So I'd just like to ask Emily and Annie for their comments. Emily, what's your response to parents that feel they aren't being heard?
My response is personally not being heard, whether your professional or personal life, is the single most frustrating thing for me. So you feel helpless. And the more you're ignored, the more angry you feel. I hear you, parents. I am absolutely in a line with a lot of the frustrations and angers and disappointments I think is really and failures, honestly, at times. I really want to validate that. I think our parents, really need to be engaged and involved like our community is. We are very fortunate to have the parent engagement that we do. It's so important for a child's development and educational success to have parents actively engaged. Like Carl has mentioned about the transparency and communication, I think these are really areas that I'm hopeful and optimistic we can improve. I think there are really other opportunities to continue to engage parents. I know we're doing a lot of committees, there's surveys and polls, but even I personally would like to add more of a of a personal interaction with parents on the board. Again, I don't know, certainly the do's and don'ts of this, but I would personally be okay with being able to have personal conversations with parents one-on-one or in a setting where you can do this coffee. And it's unfortunate we can't, I mean, I know this is COVID times, unfortunate we can't, have more of a roundtable discussion where it is more personal. Because it's hard to be on a screen. There's no emotion. It's hard to, reflect the emotion and tone. And I personally like to connect with someone who I'm talking with. So I'm hopeful that maybe we can start doing something a little bit more interactive like that. But, too, at the end of the day, I really do want to try and give parents hope out there. I think we do have a tremendous opportunity with the hiring of the new superintendent. I mean, I know for me personally, not being a member, I may not be involved in the interviewing process. So I'm certainly trying to impress some things onto Alice and Carl that might be more involved with it. But really, by establishing expectations for this new superintendent from day one of how we want the position to interact, to communicate with not only the board, but the community as a whole, sets the tone for that long-term partnership. And I think we have the opportunity now in front of us to install a leader that can rebuild trust and confidence in position. And I think this is something that's tremendously lacking right now. And, we want to find someone that can be that creative, outside of the box thinker, to troubleshoot, to problem solve, and to provide options to our parents, to allow them to make the best educational decisions for their children. And I think if anything, that I can offer right now is that I really do think there is tremendous hope there with finding the right superintendent to help lead this district.
Thank you so much, Emily. Annie, what approach would you take to listening to the community and effectively communicate the board's decision with students, families, and the community?
Well, I agree that it's a very legitimate concern right now. And I completely agree that there's a real opportunity in hiring the new superintendent, and that in the interview process, one of the things we should be looking for is a person who has a solid approach to communication, which I recognize is not easy, but a plan for being in touch with the community on a regular basis. I can share several examples from my own experience of where I've felt frustrated as a parent with a lack of communication. And I'll share one from last night's board meeting. At some point, the administration made a really wonderful and very strong representation about how much they cared about kids who were struggling, and that they really wanted to hear from parents who have kids who are struggling. If you have a kid who's struggling and we don't know about it, you got to tell us. I looked at the meeting and on the little YouTube thing to see how many people were on the meeting at that time. It was like 108. And I'm sure several other 100 people have seen it, but it's certainly not all parents. I have not heard that sentiment expressed by the administration in any way otherwise. And that seems like something that's important to them and important to us as parents. So we need to find a better way to get those kinds of good messages out beyond a board meeting, because a board meeting is not the only way to communicate with the community. So I think that's something that we need to do as a board and with the new superintendent. I think also, just finally, we just need to do a better job of listening, plain and simple. Emily hit the nail on the head. It is the most frustrating thing when you feel like you're not being listened to. It's like the customer service example where you call and you're trying to explain your problem. You can tell the person at the other end of the line isn't listening to you. It's just maddening. So we need to really listen to parents and be responsive to their concerns. And I'll say not just the loudest parents, because I think that can be an issue too. But if there's something that the community really wants, we need to listen. And if there's some reason why we're not going to follow what we're hearing from them, we need to explain very clearly and transparently why that is.
Thank you so much, Annie. Very good responses. We do have a question that I wanted to ask all of the candidates to respond to, and I do think you've addressed some of this question to some extent. but let's see where we go with this. Several questions have been submitted in regard to students returning to full day in-person learning, because this is the most pressing issue our school district is facing right now. We're asking each of you to answer this question. As I said, you've already addressed it to some extent. So you've all discussed what you want, what's best for our students, and that's to get them back in school full-time as soon as possible. And 3 out of 4 of you have children who attend the District 67 schools. You've mentioned this, and how important do you feel it is to get them back into school full-time? And what additional insights and ideas come to mind to make this happen? And let's start with Emily.
Sure. I mean, it's the single top priority, I think, facing our district at the moment. I mean, again, I was, disappointed that we are in the place that we are today. And I think it's the kid at the end of the day, it's really not, it's impacting me, it's impacting my children. And I think we really need to leverage our local resources to see again, space seems to be an issue. It's been an issue from day one. What else can we do? I think Alice had a pretty creative idea about modular units or something like that. Or, I mean, I even at the board meeting, that what about pausing the specials and just for the remaining, remaining term. I know that that's not ideal, but perhaps that, frees up some space with adding more children to the buildings. I think moving forward, I think the board really needs to demand and really set the clear direction from what they're looking for from the administration in terms of the milestone dates and when they need to deliver. If they do not deliver it, they need to be on top of the superintendent and making sure that they're getting this information. And I think this came up before too. I mean, that is one thing that I really have a pet peeve on, is just not providing the information the day of. Personally and professionally, I deal with a lot of municipal boards. I've got to submit my stuff weeks before. If it's not submitted in, it's rejected. If staff does not work to, address these boards properly, my petitions can be tabled or rejected or delayed. I mean, I think we really need to take that hard approach at some of this, because the board members need to have the information and have the information to be able to review and comment on. And the information needs to be complete. I've heard some over time that the superintendent's report has lacked detail. It has not been as thorough as it could have been or should have been, and really should have been, therefore rejected, in my opinion. I think we need to just take a firmer stance on it and direct the superintendent, like the board should, and really get the kids back in school. It's really got to be a top priority here.
Thank you, Emily. Annie, what are your thoughts?
Well, I feel like I've been a naysayer so far. So I will start by saying I was very encouraged by the number of teachers that have received their first vaccine so far. I was encouraged by I think it was 93% of faculty and staff members who are very much willing to take the vaccine. So I think we are on the right track there, and that absolutely needs to be a priority. There was some talk about having, didn't seem like a dedicated site that exists, but a place where teachers they can go to have the vaccine. I think we could take that up a notch and really try to find a way to have a dedicated place for our teachers to go to be vaccinated. I think somebody needs to spend a lot of time thinking about space. As I said earlier, I agree. Alice made a creative suggestion. There were a lot of creative suggestions on the board. Somebody in the administration needs to really take a hard look at that. And then I think we should be looking at these other school districts that are opening, and what are they doing? What have they done differently? What's working? What's not? I doubt anybody's doing it perfectly, but we may be able to take an idea here or there from them. I mean, it's a great way to learn from others and figure out what really is going to be the best solution for us.
Great. Thank you so much, Annie. Carl, how about you? Do you have anything to add to that?
I guess just a couple thoughts. And I do believe that it is possible that we can open up our schools, even with the limited space that we have in some of our elementary schools. That was a consistent phrase that the superintendent and a lot of the principals, the elementary school principals, put out there. But as a department head for Lake County, the government there wasn't a day that we didn't have that building open. It was completely open. We were mandated to have that thing open for the public to come in and perform the lawful things that they had to do. And I do look at this as the same way. But I am, as a department head, I am very keen and aware that I need space to operate and as a staff member to do that. And in the county, we have a county administrator, and that is the same thing as a superintendent here in the school district. And to put it bluntly, that superintendent is a screen between the board members and the staff. Because quite frankly, the staff will spin their wheels on our direction if we call and direct them in person or directly. So I firmly believe in that direction goes to Mike Simic, the superintendent. And I'm also a firm believer that sometimes change needs to happen. And maybe this is very fortuitous timing that Mike Simic is leaving on to a different school district. Changing blood, changing pace, changing ideas. And this is the time to do it. And we can get there. So my initial thoughts and insights to this is that I think change is good. It needs to happen. It's healthy. And we can have new eyes look at this from a different perspective and maybe inject a different kind of energy into the staff in order to push forward.
Thank you so much, Carl. Alice, do you have something to add to this?
Well, the goal is to get our children back in school full time. I am an advocate for two learning models during this pandemic. One is in person and one is remote. So we've accomplished that during this school year with the hybrid model and the ABA. Now it's time for us to take the next step. And although the administration recommends hybrid for the remainder of the year, we are pushing to see if that can be changed, asking them to provide details. We do need the vaccinations to continue with the staff and teachers, and we need to solve for the space issue. But again, the good news is the goal and the direction right now is we will have full-time in-person learning in the fall.
Thank you so much, Alice. We're getting some questions from the chat that we're running a little low on time, but I definitely want to get to some of these questions from the chat. One big question that we're getting is about the shared services agreement. And this is to all panelists, a question about what is your position about eliminating the non-working shared superintendent and to go to one, to go to 2-1 for, I guess it's a superintendent for the 67 and then one for the District 115. So who would like to, I'll throw that out there to.
I'm happy to take it.
Alice.
Got it, Alice.
Okay. Well, personally, I'm not an advocate for shared services. I've gone on record saying that. I think we should have separate leadership in District 67 and 115, especially at times of crisis. It's incredibly hard for one person to take care of the needs of not only pre-K, but seniors in high school. It's just a lot of children of different ages, different grade levels. And in addition, in our community, there's 2 boards, so 14 people. I don't believe one person can manage all that successfully. I think it's been a problem, and I think we've seen Mike Simic struggle with that, and we should rethink it. That being said, there was a joint board meeting in January, and the decision was made through each of our voicing our opinions to, for the moment, continue the shared services model in looking for a new superintendent. It doesn't mean we won't revisit it again, but that was a decision made in January. The benefit of the shared service model is it does save our community a significant amount of money.
Good, very good points, Alice. Thank you. Next response. Did Carl, were you?
Happy to jump in unless Annie or Emily want to go.
Go ahead.
Okay. So coming into this fresh last year, I really didn't know what the shared services was or how it was made up. But as a pragmatic engineer that I am, I looked at Lake Bluff, Lake Forest, 2 taxing bodies, 3 different school districts. Somehow the high school is wrapped in with the elementary, middle schools, and also with Lake Bluff at the same time. On the surface, to me, it doesn't make any sense to do that. I was one of 14 that really thought that the best solution would be either a singular school district across the board or have 3 completely separate school districts. But the agreement that did come out, what Alice alluded to, the agreement came out to look at this and to continue looking at this for the next year or so to do. As you can imagine, changing the taxing body would be extremely difficult to do and take a lot of time. But just because it's hard doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. And so I am very supportive of what makes the most sense. And if that means we have a single school district across both communities, or if that means we have 3 separate school districts across all the communities, so be it. I'm very supportive of it.
Thanks so much, Carl. Annie or Emily, would you like to?
I mean, I really kind of echo this similar response. I mean, I think, particularly now more than ever during a time of crisis, it's become very, very evident. It's very difficult for one person to juggle both districts. And obviously from time of crisis, but also just the educational needs are very different from high school students versus K through 8. I know it's going to be continuing to be revisited, and I think it's a good thing. Certainly costs are obviously a factor, but I really do think that my position would be to separate it, just given what we've experienced, the difference in educational needs, and moving forward, I think it would just be a better fit for the community.
Very interesting. Yes, thanks. How about you, Annie? Do you have any
So I'm
thoughts?
obviously not on the school board now, and I haven't had a chance to delve into this quite as deeply as I'm sure Carl and Alice have. I did listen to the school board meeting at some point. I've lost all track of time, but recently, where this was discussed in some detail. And I do think that there is quite a significant financial savings for the way that things are set up now. And also that it will be a fair amount of work to unwind where things stand, which is not to say that I'm unsupportive of it. It's just that I think at this moment, while we're dealing with so much transition, is probably, I'm supportive of the board's decision to sort of look at it further and move on it at a time when there aren't quite so many things happening, if that's appropriate. But I do think I have to say that I have to study it a little bit more as a board member to really come down with a firm opinion.
Sure. Thank you so much. I have another question for all the panelists. What do you say to the parents and children that are quite happy and successful in the hybrid situation and do not want a change? Will you ask to accommodate those students like you are ABA? Whoever would like to answer.
I mean, I can go for that. For me personally, just I haven't shared till now, but my students actually started in the ABA program, both of them. My son, who has an IEP, it was very difficult for him, but I recognized that 3 weeks in, and unfortunately, because we had the hybrid model, I was able to transfer him into the hybrid in-person learning. My daughter remained in it for through, I think, first trimester. So in November, she asked for social reasons. She wanted to be with her friends, and she's had just such a wonderful experience at Deer Path that she wanted to be in person with her friends as well. I think we would continue to offer. I think that makes sense to continue to offer that to parents that want that, because at the end of the day, we have got to consider all of the students. All of our students have a lot of different varying degrees of needs. And I think that it's important to consider everyone in the decision. And if we put together this wonderful program for the kids, I think it should continue and be available to the parents as needed.
Thank you so much, Emily. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is exactly where the survey of the parents is really important, because we want to hear from people for whom it's going well. And I do think that it's not all negative. I remember when my kids started in the hybrid model, I realized this is half the class size. And that's kind of a wonderful thing. So it's really important to hear some feedback from the entire community about it. And I think, having listened to the meeting last night and just sort of common sense, that it would be very hard to offer 3 different models. That's asking a lot of the school. I think we have to have some version of the ABA for kids who may be immune compromised or live with someone who is. So, it's something that I think we can look at a little bit more and should hear from parents about, but it's probably hard to do all 3.
Thank you so much, Annie. Anyone else have any comments?
So I can add that the hybrid model has been very successful for many of our students. It was created with a lot of thought for this school year to get us through this pandemic and to provide an option other than complete remote learning. AVA is also necessary because of students' needs and family needs, and I think that will stay. I don't think we will be able to support 3 models. So I think at some point it will either be hybrid or full-time in-person learning. But for now and for this year, it's been hybrid and it's been working for many. I know there's a large part of our community who wants to change back to full-time, and that will come. But again, like Annie said, it will be very difficult. I don't think we can support 3 models. So, fill out your survey and make your thoughts known. Thanks.
Thank you, Alice.
And I agree with the 3 of them. Absolutely. Parents, families, they know what's best for their children. They know what's best for their educational wants and needs. And having AVA and a form of hybrid moving forward we got to hear what your needs are so that they can make the decision. And I think that was really the driving comment that I left with the board meetings, that we need data to make decisions. And Jeff Folkler and Dr. Rod Lemke, they drove that point pretty hard to the administration, that get the survey out there. We got to know who wants what and what the real numbers are before we can really make a decision of having full in-person or not, or some variety of that. So I do think that hearing from all the parents is going to be super critical moving forward.
Thanks so much, Carl. And thank you all. I think we're running close to the end of our time here, unfortunately. And I just wanted to thank all the participants for their excellent questions and the candidates for their thoughtful answers. And now I'd like to turn it over to the candidates so that they can each relate some final thoughts. Emily, would you like to start us off?
Sure, I gotta remember to unmute myself. Jeez, okay. Well, thank you, everyone. I mean, I really thank you to the caucus and to the community for this wonderful hour of dialogue. I mean, I really, again, wish this was more in person versus virtual. But again, in closing here tonight, I mean, I really want to say I'm very mindful that, as a singular board, if I am elected to the board, that I'm just one voice, but I think it's really my responsibility and obligation to challenge, to ask these pointed questions and to make sure that we are getting the detail and the direction that we deserve and need. At the end of the day, as a board member, I'd be doing a disservice if I wasn't. I mean, that's certainly my role. Our future role as a board member is to really make sure we're holding that superintendent accountable. Really, this is my pledge to you as a board member. I really have just a genuine desire to help and to help Lake Forest to continue to make our schools the premier North Shore school district. Really thank you for your time and consideration, and get out and vote. I'm #1 on the ballot, but please, whoever you vote for, just get out and vote. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Emily. And now Annie, final thoughts?
Sure. Well, thank you so much again for having me here. And what I'd like to say is just I already have a whole new level of respect for what it means to serve on the board. And hats off to Carl and to Alice for all of the work that they've put in and their service to the community. This is a volunteer position, and it's something that I think all of our board members do because they really care. And these decisions are hard, and they have never been harder than they are right now. So I just want to say thank you. And as candidates and hopefully as board members, are going to do the best we can for your kids, because there's just nothing more important.
Thank you so much, Annie. Carl, final thoughts?
Yes, thank you. So when I volunteered and was later selected last year to fill that vacant position, I wanted to give back to the community that's really given me so much and my family so much. My teachers, my girls' teachers made such an incredibly positive impression on me that I really wanted to give back and support this district in any way that I could. To be honest with you, though, this past year has been crazy challenging. Beyond the work pressures, we thrust adult expectations on our kids with little warning. My wife and I have played a dual role as parent and school proctor. And I spent an incredible amount of time as a board member working through the pandemic, discussing and working through the union collective bargaining agreement, and now working through superintendent leaving for a job right down the road. And quite honestly, I look over my shoulder for lions, tigers, bears, locusts, some other pestilence. It's been just crazy. But with all that said, I feel just incredibly blessed. My family's safe, we're healthy, we're gainfully employed. My children continue to grow and learn. So I still want to give back to this school district and this community and really repay the community for as much as it has given me and my family. So thank you for your chance to be here today. And I look forward to continuing my service with the school board. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carl. And Alice, final thoughts?
So thank you everyone for joining us this evening. We appreciate the opportunity to reach out and share some of our thoughts as this election looms ahead and how we would make good board members for the next 4 years. So one thing to remember is we need to bring stability and normalcy back to our schools, our families, and community. I said that earlier, and I feel that's still so important. And we need to continue to strive to make our schools the #1 reason families choose to live in Lake Forest. We've accomplished a lot in the last 4 years that I've been on the board, but there's always so much more to do. I believe, though, that together we can make good things happen. So thank you for your consideration.
Thanks so much, Alice. And thank you so much, candidates, for stepping up and asking to be on our school board. We hope you all agree and vote Bernal, Helms, Carrar, Levert, numbers 1, 2, 3, and 5 on the ballot on April 6th. They are the candidates we need to navigate us through today and lead us into tomorrow. To learn more about these candidates, please visit our website, www.studentsuccess2021.com. Thanks again to everyone for joining us, and have a good evening.
Thank you.